It's so weird to me how video game collectors are so against selling their own games. They treat it as if you're throwing away a one-of-a-kind item you'll never get back. When in reality, it's not that big of a deal if you sell your loose Game Boy Advance Mario Bros. 3. You can easily get that back anytime. I understand if you sold your GameCube games to GameStop when you were a kid, and that's why you're scared to let anything go now. But nobody is seriously doing that anymore. And sometimes, it's okay to get rid of games you don't really care about. Your collection shouldn't stay static. Your taste in games is always evolving, so it's good to look at your collection and choose what to keep and what to sell. It's definitely better than hoarding every single game you own. Also, it's a good thing that games are in constant circulation, going from person to person being played, and not just stuck in someone's room. And the funds you get from selling the games can go back into your collection, maybe going towards a grail you've always wanted. And I've done that a lot, and I'm pretty happy about it. I don't have any regrets of any of the games I've sold, because I know the game is going to someone who's going to play it, and I'm getting more funds for my collection. So I wanted to talk about some of those sales I've done, maybe to make someone else comfortable about selling their own games and letting them go. And the first game I want to talk about is... Man, 2023 to 2024 was kind of crazy for Xbox 360 game collecting. A little bit of context. We got the announcement that the online store was shutting down soon, and the hysteria started. We got YouTube videos, Reddit threads, everyone in the hobby talking about getting Xbox 360 games before they got expensive, especially since the games have always been very cheap. I'm talking $10 to $5 for your average 360 game and $50 for your high-end games. And out of nowhere, a bunch of those games were rising in price. I saw in real time how games like Blur, Katamari Damacy, and Battle Fantasia were being bought out on eBay and relisted for 3 times the price. And I'm just gonna say it, Switch games aren't the only games I collect. For a while, I had a small but pretty nice collection of Xbox 360 games that I thought were pretty cool. And within a couple months, that stock got pricey. And yes, I got rid of many of my games around that time, because why wouldn't I? I love the 360, but a lot of those games I didn't really care about too much, and I didn't mind parting ways with those games. Games like, don't ask me why I had this game. 2 copies actually, which I sold for $50 each. Honestly, a pretty good price, and nowadays this game still goes for around $35 to $40. So that's a game that's kept its price a year later. Another game I ended up selling was SRS Wrath. This game is great. It feels Colossus when you play this game. I got this game a little bit after the 360 store shutdown got announced, because it's one of the only 360 exclusive that is still worth having. And I wanted to get a copy before it happened. And I did. I got my copy for around $25 from a local game store, but as the months passed, and I keep seeing how crazy the prices were getting for this, I knew I had to get rid of it. There were other games I could get if I sold SRS Wrath, games that would mean more to me personally. So I did. I sold it for $60, close to its height. I think the game was commanding close to $80 eventually, and I'm glad I sold it, because now you can get this game for about $35 to $40, which is still higher than before the price hike, but it's still a little bit more reasonable. This one's kind of crazy. Fist of the North Star King's Rage 2. I always go to Mexico to visit family, and if you know anything about Mexico, you know that the Xbox 360 was and still is very popular. If you were to go to a game store there, you'll see a bunch of Xbox 360 games, and that's how I slowly grew my collection. One of the games I got was Fist of the North Star 2. At the time I got this game, it was around $50, and I'm someone who is up to trying any weird game I find. Then I played it. This game is not great. The controls are pretty bad, the levels are boring, and the gameplay is very repetitive. Then I just kept it for some reason. Fast forward a year later, and Fist of the North Star 2 is now one of the most expensive games on the Xbox 360, peaking at around $200. The reason why this game got so expensive is because although the first North Star game was on both the 360 and PS3, the sequel was an Xbox 360 exclusive. Plus, it's an anime game. Those are always expensive. So I had to make a decision. Do I care about this game? Do I need it? Will I die without it? Not really. I ended up selling this game for around $150 on eBay, and thanks to that, I was able to get a personal grail, Rhythm Heaven Fever, for around $100 I think. I want to make a video about the Wii, some cool Wii games I have, so if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe, and leave a comment about some of the games you don't regret selling, and why. I love collecting for every console, but the Switch is my bread and butter. I've been collecting Switch games since 2019, and it's been a lot of fun exploring its huge library and keeping up with every release. But there's a lot of duds, some made by Nintendo. Obviously, I still have all the heavy hitters like Mario Odyssey, Breath of the Wild, Mario Wonder, Xenoblade, Pikmin, Metroid, etc. But I've parted ways with some of the first party games on Switch. Games that didn't really leave an impact on me, or games that I don't see myself playing ever again. Games like ARMS, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, Tears of the Kingdom, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and Fire Emblem Three Houses. All good games, except Tears of the Kingdom, but I feel like they didn't need to be in my collection. They didn't reflect anything about what I am really passionate about. In my personal opinion, a lot of the most interesting games on Switch are from third-party and indie devs. Now, another Switch game that I did get rid of that was not first-party is The World Ends With You. This is a game I played on DS when I was younger, and I loved it. I love the aesthetic, I love the music, the gameplay. It shaped a lot about what I liked when I was like 12 years old. So having an enhanced version of Switch sounded like a great idea until I tried it out. It's commonly agreed on that this version isn't the best way to experience this game, with its weird controllers trying to mimic the DS stylus. So I never really played through it. Sure, it technically has more content, but it was uncomfortable to play. So I just sat on my shelf for years. Until one day, I went to a convention and got myself a beautiful sealed copy of the original DS game for around 50 bucks. A great price. Now I own the real deal, the original game I played when I was younger. The Switch version didn't mean that much to me, and it played worse, so in my mind, it didn't make sense to keep both versions. Especially now that I have the superior, better version with the DS. When it comes to collecting, a lot of the time I prefer owning the original version of the game instead of re-releases, unless they make drastic improvements or add significant content. And this was an example of that. It would be an understatement to say that the Switch has a lot of RPGs, and I would say that I like them, not love them. I may play 1 or 2 RPGs a year, but at least I find them a little bit interesting. And I do collect a lot of them. One that the Switch collecting community has been crazy over for a while is Atelier Ryza, a series of cozy RPGs that are more like slice of life anime made into an RPG. Everyone was talking about it as a must buy, but I saw what those sick people liked about this game. But I was no different than them, and I got the first 2 games. I was pretty excited. This looked like a high budget RPG with very cute characters, and it ran surprisingly good on Switch without compromising frame rate or resolution. I mean, the Switch version was on par with the PS4 version. Everything was lining up for me to enjoy this game a lot. But unfortunately, it seems like this game just wasn't for me. The pace of the game was pretty slow at the beginning, yet the amount of mechanics they threw at you was overwhelming, especially when it came to the alchemy. I felt like I wasn't ready for this game yet, and I decided to sell it. This was a hard decision to make since it felt like this game would become a must-own RPG on the Switch collecting sphere. In a way, they are, but there were other games I would rather have. Another thing, at the time these games were out of stock. Also, it was around the release of the 3rd and final entry of the series, so the price of these games were getting up there. The second one, which I never opened, was selling for 100 bucks, so I had to. And I'm glad I did. I sold them at the perfect time. The games later got a reprint, lowering the price of the games in the secondhand market, so I sold it at the perfect time. On top of that, right now they're releasing an enhanced version of the trilogy with all the DLC included in a single pack. So if I really wanted to try this series out again, which I will eventually, I could get this enhanced version. Overall, I'm glad I sold them. Thanks to that, I was able to get games like AI The Somnium Files on Switch, which is amazing by the way, and Wise on PS5. And that's it. What do you guys think? Should I have kept those games? What are your thoughts about selling games? Leave everything in the comments below and let me know.